When Israel was in Egypt land, oppressed so hard they could not stand. Go down, Moses, way down in Egypt land. Tell old Pharaoh to let my people go. Let my people go, by James Weldon Johnson. And God called Moses from the burning bush, and he called in a still, small voice. And he said, Moses, Moses. And Moses listened, and he answered and said, Lord, here am I. And the voice in the burning bush said, Moses, draw not nigh. Take off your shoes, for you are standing on holy ground. And Moses stopped where he stood. He took off his shoes. He looked in the burning bush, and he heard the voice, but he saw no man. And God again spoke to Moses, and he spoke in a voice of thunder. I am the Lord God Almighty. I am the God of thy fathers. I am the God of Abraham, Isaac, and of Jacob. And Moses hid his face. But God said, I have seen awful suffering of my people down in Egypt land. I have heard of their hard oppressors, their overseers, and their drivers. The groans of my people have filled my ears, and I can't stand it any longer. So I have come down to deliver them out of the land of Egypt into the land of Canaan. Therefore, Moses, go down. Go down in Egypt land and tell old Pharaoh to let my people go. But Moses said, Lord, who am I to make a speech before Pharaoh? Lord, you know I'm slow in tongue. But God said, I will be thy mouth, and I will be thy tongue. Now go down, Moses. Go down in Egypt land and tell old Pharaoh to let my people go. And Moses, with his rod in his hand, went down and said to Pharaoh, Thus said the Lord God of Israel, let my people go. And Pharaoh looked at Moses. He stood still and he looked at Moses, and he said, Who is this Lord? I know all the gods of Egypt, but I know no God of Israel. So go back, Moses, and tell your God, I will not let this people go. Poor old Pharaoh. Poor old Pharaoh. He has all the knowledge of Egypt, yet he never knew the one and living God. Poor old Pharaoh. He has all the power of Egypt, and yet he's going to try and test his strength with the might of the great Jehovah, with the might of the Lord God of hosts, mighty in battle. And God, sitting high up in his heavens, laughed at poor old Pharaoh. And Pharaoh called the overseers, and he called his drivers, and he said, Put heavier burdens still on the backs of the Hebrew children. And the people all choked with Moses. They all cried out to him, saying, Look here, Moses, you've been to Pharaoh, but look and see what he has done to us now. And Moses was troubled in mind. But God said, go again, Moses, you and your brother Aaron. Say once more to Pharaoh, thus said the Lord God of the Hebrews, let my people go. And Moses and Aaron with their rods in their hands worked many signs and wonders. And Pharaoh sent for his magic men, and they worked wonders too. And old Pharaoh's heart was hardened, and he would not let God's people go. And God rained down plagues on Egypt, plagues of frogs, lice, locusts, plagues of blood boils and darkness, and other plagues beside. But every time God would move a plague, old Pharaoh's heart was hardened, and he would not. No, he would not let God's people go. And Moses was troubled still. But God said, listen, Moses, the God of Israel will not be mocked. Just one more witness of my power I will give, O hard-hearted Pharaoh. This very night about midnight, I will cross over Egypt land, and I will smite their firstborn dead. And God that night crossed over. And a cry went up in Egypt land. And old Pharaoh rose in the middle of the night and sent in a hurry for Moses. And he said, go forth from among my people, you and all your Hebrew children. Take your goods and take your flock and get away from the land of Egypt. And right then Moses led them out with all their goods and all their flock. And God went on before, a guiding pillar of cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night. And they journeyed on through the wilderness and came down to the Red Sea. But in the morning, they missed the Hebrew children. 400 years. 400 years they had held them down in Egypt land, held them under the driver's lash, and worked them without money and without price. It might have been Pharaoh's wife who said, Pharaoh, look what you've done now. You've let the Hebrew children go. Who is going to serve us now? Who is going to make the bricks and mortar? Who is going to plant and plow the corn? Who is going to get up in the chill of the morning? Who is going to work in the blazing sun? Pharaoh, tell me this. And Pharaoh called the generals, and the generals called the captains, and the captains called the soldiers, and they hitched up all the chariots, 1,600 chariots of war, and 2,400 horses. And the chariots were full of men with swords and shields and shiny spears, battle bows and arrows. And Pharaoh's army pursued the Hebrew children down to the edge of the Red Sea. And now, the children of Israel, all looking back, saw Pharaoh's army coming. The roaring of the chariots was like a thunderstorm. The whirring of the wheels was like a rushing wind. The dust from the horses made a cloud that darkened the day, and the glittering of the spears was like lightning in the night. The children of Israel all lost faith. The children of Israel all lost hope. Deep Red Sea in front of them, and Pharaoh's host all behind. And they began to mumble and grumble to themselves. Were there no graves in Egypt? And they all cried out to Moses, saying, Slavery in Egypt was better than to die out here in this wilderness. But Moses said, stand still and see the Lord work his salvation. For the Lord God of Israel will not forsake his people. The Lord God of Israel will break the horsemen. The Lord God of Israel will break the chariots. The Lord God of Israel will break great Egypt's swords and shields and shiny spears, battle bows and arrows. This day he'll make proud Pharaoh know just who is God of Israel. And right then Moses lifted his rod across the Red Sea, and God, with a blast of his nostrils, blew the waters apart, and the waves rolled back and stood up in a pile, and left a path in the middle of the sea, as dry as the sands of the desert. And the children of Israel all crossed over onto the other side. When Pharaoh saw them crossing dry, he dashed in behind them. And old Pharaoh had gotten about halfway across, and God unlashed the waters. The waves rushed back together. Pharaoh and his army all were lost. Pharaoh and his host all were drowned. And Moses sang, and Miriam danced, and the people shouted for joy. And God led the Hebrew children on until they reached the promised land. Listen, listen, all you sons of Pharaoh, just who do you think can hold God's people when the Lord God himself has said, let my people go?